Hello everyone, welcome to Talking with Dr. Laz, your favorite health program on television, reaching you from Nigeria's capital city, Abuja. My name is Dr. Laz Eze. Yes, last week there was a video that went viral online, posted by a colleague, Dr. Chinonso Egemba, popularly known as Aproko Doctor. For those who use social media, is arguably the most popular Nigerian doctor on social media, and also uses his platform to educate people on health. But he had a health condition that he battled in December, the brain tumor. He told his story and how he got treated in Nigeria, and many persons were fascinated to even know that, brain tumor surgeries can be done in Nigeria. Yes, it's a procedure that neurosurgeons do over time. So I'm going to play that personal story of Dr. Egemba, and I thank him for approving that we use it on this program. And I will have a neurosurgeon who is going to briefly tell us about brain tumor, how do we identify it, because there's actually no known cause, how do we identify it, and what are the options when it comes to treatment. But before we get there, let me announce that Nigeria Center for Disease Control on the website gave public health advisory on outbreak of diphtheria. Diphtheria is an infectious disease caused by the Corynebacterium species, a species of bacteria that could affect the respiratory system, the nose, and all of that. And according to NCDC, they responded to reports of diphtheria cases in Lagos and Kano, and also monitoring the situations in Osun and Yobe states. So this a developing public health condition. Of course, diphtheria is a health condition that is vaccine preventable. So the pentavalent vaccine is one of the 5 vaccines that is given through pentavalent vaccine, given freely to children. So diphtheria is a serious bacterial infection, and people at risk, you have children and you have adults, especially those that have not been immunized against it. So watch out for this, and if you have any of the symptoms, you could go to a health facility, avoid crowded places, because it can easily be transmitted. And the symptoms might include fever, runny nose, sore throat, cough, red eyes or conjunctivitis, neck swelling, and in severe cases, you may have a thick gray or white patch appearing on the tonsils. Tonsils is part of the throat. This is according to NCDC. So if you identify, of course, there are other health conditions that could cause this. But if you suspect diphtheria, please go to a health facility for proper diagnosis and treatment. We'll get back to the program. Do stay with us after this break. Welcome back to Talking with Dr. Laz, your favorite health program on television. So let's now hear the story as told by Dr. Chinonso Egemba on his experience with brain tumor, the surgery that he had, and also hear a bit from Dr. Tayo Ojo. Dr. Tayo Ojo was the neurosurgeon that carried out the procedure here in Nigeria. He's been widely applauded by netizens, Nigerians active on social media.
One thing to understand at the end of this video is that health issues can happen to you no matter where you are. It happened that on the 5th of December, I was diagnosed with a craniopharyngioma, which is a brain tumor, and I had no idea I would be sharing my story because I had just finished shooting the last episode. We were in the process of editing it so that it's out. And here I am sitting on this seat sharing my own story about how I had a tumor in my brain. And it happened that I was an MC at an event on the 1st of December with a fellow doctor. We were talking about how research in Africa had helped, pharmacy. And I was having one of the headaches rather that I've always had in this period. And yeah, it's one of the headaches, and I just popped the analgesics, but it wasn't getting any better. I had also gone to the US consulate that same day thinking it was just stress, and after stress I was still having the headaches. I went back to the hotel and I came back home. The next day I was driving to the mall and I felt that as if there was a smudge on this glass. And so I took it out, I cleaned it, but this eye just felt funny. And I took that out, cleaned it, and I drove back home. When I got home, I told my wife, I said, honey, I think there's something wrong with this eye. And the first thing she said was, God forbid. I was like, okay, amen, it's fine. And I went out, preparing for the next event. When I got to the next event on December 3rd, that was my mom's birthday. I was supposed to talk to people about how to live healthy and exercise, basically, because that's what I do. And while I was waiting for the event to kick off, before I speak, I still had this feeling in this eye. And so I went to the top view of the field, and I kept trying to, check myself as a doctor. And I closed this eye. And as I closed this eye, I realized that I couldn't see out of this eye. Now it's funny, but then it was not. So I went to do an MRI. And while I was doing an MRI, while I was still in the machine, the radiographer said that he thought he saw something, but that he needed to inject a contrast in my vein and find out what was going on. I knew there was a problem. He did it, and the radiologist was not around. But when the radiologist came, he said he thought that it was an aneurysm. An aneurysm is a swollen blood vessel, by the way. And when he told me that, I was very worried. And while in the car, I was crying. I was crying because I had asked myself, why me? The results came out. My wife gave me the results. I looked at it, and they said on the 5th of December, I had a tumor sitting in my head. Let me tell you where it was sitting. It was sitting, if you draw a line here, in, and you draw another line here, in, at the point where they meet, directly in the middle of my brain, around my pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is the master gland. The master gland is the gland that controls almost everything in your body, from your sex, to your water, to your stress, to almost everything. And it was around it. It was also sitting on the optic nerve around this eye and was also affecting this eye, to the point where this eye, I couldn't see with it, and it was also closing. It was so bad that I couldn't read out of my phone anymore. I had to use my tablet, which was bigger, and I increased the size of the font on my screen. So I also, and when they did that, they said, okay, it's a craniopharyngioma and we need to do a surgery to remove it. And I started laughing. I was laughing because I could remember the exact time in class or as a medical student where they were teaching us the points of a craniopharyngioma and how it can affect your vision. And this was it, happening to me. While I was being driven home, I was called by Dr. Onya. Dr. Onya is a neurosurgeon in Lagun Hospital, Lagos, Ikoyi. But before that, I had given my film, my results, to Dr. Nnamdi. Nnamdi is an interventional radiologist, because at that point I was still thinking it was, not a tumor yet. Before then, and so I had sent it to him. Immediately, he sent the film to Dr. Tayo Ojo. Apparently, Dr. Tayo and Dr. Onya worked together in the same hospital.
Craniopharyngioma is a brain tumor. Largely, in most cases, it is benign. It's a tumor that is somewhere between the pituitary gland and the base of the brain. The site of the lesion of the tumor is quite strategic because of structures around the tumor. The optic nerve that we used to see, the pituitary gland that controls everything in the body, the hypothalamus or pituitary stalk behind it. Suffice to say that it's a small tumor that could be very big, but in a very strategic place. Case, the complications will range from infection, which is very treatable, to death, and everything in between, meaning the blindness could be forever. It is also possible that the vessels around the tumor could be injured, and if that happens, there will be stroke. And if the injury is much, it could lead to death.
One of the tests that we're supposed to do, the hormonal test, that's the ACTH, was not done anywhere in Nigeria. And so they took the test and sent it all the way to two countries, South Africa and Germany. I took my own personal test because I felt that the test that the hospital took was wasting time. So I went to SynLab, begged the CEO, and he said that he was going to, fast forward it. And they sent it to Germany. And I can only imagine how many people who really need these tests that have to wait for 2 weeks for the results to come out. And then the weekend of the surgery, we were supposed to have the surgery, and then the doctor came that Sunday. And while he came that Sunday, he told me that the brain tumor completely covered the pituitary stalk. And so it wasn't going to be really easy to, just take it out. Initially, they had wanted to go through my nose to get the tumor out. But then, because of the position of the tumor, and then the height, if it was way lower, they would have just gone through the nose and just taken it out. But because of the height and how risky it was at that point, they said that they needed to go through the skull. So this is the line now. They had to open the skull, take out a piece. They had to take out a piece of the skull completely, go through the brain so that they can have enough real estate to see and then really do what they needed to do. I was literally shaken. I was vibrating. I was sweating. I wanted to vomit. It felt like my whole life had ended. So to be honest, there were people who asked me why I did the surgery in Nigeria, and at some point I had no answer for them because I just knew that I think we have good hands here, and it wasn't necessarily the funds. I think it was more about trust. I did not trust the foreign doctors that I was going to see, but I knew that we could do it here. Another thing that also helped me was the support system I had. My friends, my family, my wife.
Health Agenda 2023. The Nigerian health system is becoming weaker with the mass exodus of medical doctors, nurses, and other skilled health workers out of the country. In February and March 2023, Nigerians will go to the polls to elect the next president and state governors, respectively. This provides an opportunity for the election of leaders who will help to strengthen the health sector and reposition it to deliver quality healthcare services at all levels. We present to you Health Agenda 2023, an interview segment on this program for presidential and governorship candidates to discuss their health agenda before the electorates. For sponsorship and participation, reach out through any of the contact details displayed on your screen.
Welcome back to Talking with Us Last, the favorite health program on television. So I will have Professor Jude-Kennedy Emejulu, a professor of neurosurgery at the Nnamdi Azikiwe University Teaching Hospital, Nnewi, Southeast Nigeria, to speak briefly from expert perspective on brain tumors. What are the types of brain tumor? Dr. Egemba had what we call craniopharyngioma. Is a type of brain tumor. So what are other types of brain tumor? How can they be identified? And also, what should anybody do if you suspect that you have brain tumor? Let's hear Professor Emejulu. Hello, Professor Emejulu. Good to have you on the program, and congratulations on your recent inaugural lecture. So about brain tumor, what should viewers get to know about this? What are the types? Is it preventable? And what should anyone do if they suspect that they have brain tumor?
Thank you, Dr. Lars. Thank you very much. Dr. Chiazo Onya, who is the neurosurgeon at Lagoon Hospital, and Dr. Tayo Ojo, they did a yeoman's job, very impressive professional job on Dr. Chinonso, Aproko Doctor. And it really went viral, and those are the things we need. You may be surprised that the MDCN frowns against what they call adverts on medical facilities, which we think may need to be looked at again. Because if you travel to most countries in the world, they advertise their products, what they do, surgeries they do. Nigeria will almost take it as a crime if you do so. And the issue is, how does one know where to get help? And that session that has gone viral has really gone a long way in singing our song. Let me tell you, I'm sure in this country, every week, at least one craniopharyngioma is not here or there, or one pituitary adenoma surgery is not here or there. So I think we are lucky to have treated Dr. Chinoso, who has given visibility to the great works that go on every day. The job they did was a highly technical job because craniopharyngioma is a tumor, most of which are benign. That is, most of them are not regarded as cancers. But their location is so tight among very special and delicate organs, nerves, arteries, parts of the brain, glands like pituitary, like hypothalamus, that going there, you need to be as feeble-handed and as delicately handled as possible, or else you could cause more damage than you want to solve. So having to get a guy who is a colleague, a doctor, go through this, come out neat and clean, shows the technical expertise that are available within our colleagues in this country now. But mind you, there are many unsung heroes who are working day and night, even in more critical areas and more delicate surgery. And those two surgeons, Dr. Onya, Dr. Onya should be given a lot of credit because he originated that case, escalated it, and now dealt with it by professional collaboration with Dr. Tayo Ojo. And that is what we want. Those two surgeons do a lot of other cases. So from people who are less prominent than their Aproko Doctor. So they go unsung. I hope this should be the beginning of the visibility of the great works of our colleagues around this country. The WHO has a 2021 classification of tumors in the brain, from 12 to 14 different types of tumors. And this craniopharyngioma is just one of them. They are graded around cellular and paracellular tumors. The cellular is the seat at the center of the frontal part of the base of the skull, is at the middle. And that is where the pituitary tumor should have its resting place. So there are cells around the area during embryology, when the person is being developed, that are still retained some of those cells subsequently on a path that's called there are areas that develop into parts of the pituitary gland, in parts of the pharynx, the pouches. So there are rest cells there that suddenly begin to grow abnormally. Abnormal, uncontrolled growth of tissues is what is called tumor, tumorigenesis, or tumor elaboration. Every tissue has, an engram level of growth and extent. So if it grows out of that proportion, like if you imagine your hand growing into a tree, that is a tumor. So some of these cells will be flat where they are, squamous cells, and suddenly, some of them can just take off and start growing into lumps and big lumps, and that is what tumor is all about. Uncontrolled abnormal growth of tissues beyond what is actually assigned to them by genetic coding. So we have tumors that can arise from every part of the tissue in the head into the brain. The head is composed of both the skin covering it, cutaneous tissues under it, the coverings of the bone itself, coverings of the brain, but there are nerves and blood vessels inside the brain too. So all those tissues, any of them can have a tumor. So we have a lot of them, but about 14 different types in major grades that are known to come from the brain. And almost all of them are treated in Nigeria. So that there are few and far between. The greatest challenge we have is that it's like flying the Nigerian aircraft at a point when there were a lot of air crashes. So most people, until recently, did not get to develop enough confidence, unless they can't help it. Half of the people who travel abroad is not because of money for surgery. They travel abroad because they do not have confidence in the system.
Right.
Not necessarily the surgeon, but the support system. The ICU, the ventilatory packages, the drugs, the follow-up like radiation therapy, the kind of drugs we get. If you listen to the interviews we have, you heard that they have to take a tissue to Germany to make a tissue diagnosis.
Yeah.
Take tissue, fly it to Germany, which any lab which has been equipped could do. And those are the sources of the loss of confidence. If the Aproko doctor was not a doctor and he has the resources he had, he probably would want to sit around and, start arguing about sending specimens abroad to get it done. So those systems, those support systems have failed woefully in Nigeria, and they have led to a lot of crisis of confidence, and the consequence is that of capital flight. What is the way forward? The way forward is to do a SWOT analysis. We sit now, see what has happened, and see how it can be done. Lagoon Hospital, is more like a private, sector thing. It's not like a mainstream, public sector.
Okay, we're having network challenge there, but it's been a very insightful contribution by Professor Jude-Kennedy Emejulu on the issue of...
What is the director or the drill? So with what they have done, it has shown us that capacity really exists. And that if we invest focusedly, properly, and advisedly, when we get real professionals, not political hangers-on, to get us where we want to be, then definitely we'll touch the sky.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor Jude-Kennedy Emejulu, for your insightful contributions. We are happy that Aproko had a successful surgery, just like so many other less popular persons who are benefiting from the great job that neurosurgeons and indeed medical practitioners in Nigeria get to do, unrecognized and largely uncelebrated. Thank you, sir, for being on the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
All right, so that's the show for today. I'm excited about Aproko stories, and I encourage as many persons as possible to tell their story. Yes, we know that our healthcare system has a lot of challenges, but there are also success stories. And it's best when the patients themselves are the ones that tell these stories. Not only telling stories when things go bad, but also telling your stories when you are well treated by healthcare workers. I salute all Nigerian health workers who, despite the challenges, are still around and also doing their best to save lives. Thank you for watching. My name is Dr. Laz Eze. See you same station, same time next week. And by next week, I'll be having Prof. Emejulu again to now go deeper into the practice of neurosurgery in Nigeria. Bye for now.